Hey guys, welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to share with you how I prepared these chicken and sweet corn rice paper rolls. There are literally a number of different ways that rice paper can be used, and this time I decided to deep fry them. So the rice paper rolls that I'm using is an alternative to the spring roll sheets because these are gluten free. So to start off this really simple and easy recipe, I first started off with 350 grams of chicken breast and then I started to season it. The seasonings that I use for the chicken include salt, chili flakes, turmeric, chili powder and also some black pepper. I also added in a tablespoon of chili oil, but you can also just use some olive oil instead. I actually bought this oil from TK Maxx. It came in a set of 4 with different type of infused chilies inside. But I do think it would be a better option to just do it yourself. Simply add in extra virgin olive oil and add in any type of chili that you want to the oil, or even garlic as well. Simply allow your chicken to marinate. I actually cooked it straight away, but if you do want to allow it to marinate for a couple hours or overnight, then that's simply up to you. In a non-stick pan, I actually didn't add any oil because there's already oil in the chicken, and I also didn't want it too oily. Simply add the chicken to a hot pan so the chicken can have a really nice sear, and then on a medium to high heat, allowed it to sear on both sides for around 1 to 2 minutes. Chicken does release its own water, so don't be too concerned if it does look like your pan's really dry, or if you do feel like you're burning the chicken or it's searing too quickly, then simply turn the heat lower. Once the chicken is nicely seared on both sides, simply add a lid. I just use the tawa and allow it to cook for 4 to 5 minutes on a low heat. At this point, as you'd have noticed, that the chicken has released a lot of its water. And now what I simply did was I turned the heat to high so all the water can basically be evaporated. And now at this moment, while the chicken is sweating off in a high heat, I added in 1 diced onion. I added in the onions while there was still some water so they can basically cook in the water instead of them drying out with the chicken. And then after 1 to 2 minutes, you will notice that the onions have slightly softened. It is up to you whether you want to take the chicken out before you add the onions, but I really wanted the onions to have the flavour with the chicken. And then just before all the water is completely evaporated, I removed all the pieces of chicken from the pan and left the onions inside of the pan. I simply turn the heat for the onions on a medium to low just so they can cook a little bit more. And then now for the next part is to simply shred up your chicken. So once the chicken is shredded, I simply added it back to the onions and I made sure that the heat was low. I then also added in half a tin of sweet corn. You can really use your desired amount, and you can also use any type of veggies that you do want. And then just to bring everything together, I use a handful and a half of cheese. Make sure to bring up the temp a little bit at this part just so the cheese can melt and everything can mix really well together. So now for the next part, this is the rice paper that I'll be using. You can find it online at quite a lot of stores. I simply just followed the instructions that were on the packet, and I just added in some warm water to a plate, and this is what the rice paper will be dipped into for literally a couple seconds. If this is the first time you've seen rice paper be used, you literally need to dip it in warm water for literally 3 to 5 seconds, not even that. And then simply set aside your plate to one side and then add the rice paper onto your cutting board or whatever you're using to wrap up the rolls. They may not look like they're wrappable at the moment because they might still look a little bit stiff, but trust me when I say the rice paper will instantly start going really soft to a point where you can't wrap them and then you're gonna have to use another one. Like you can even see at this point it was already really sticky, and because it's so thin it is kind of hard to work with, but you will get the hang of it. This is literally how I filled the rolls. And also make sure at this point that your chicken mixture is cold, you don't want it hot. You can literally see the difference from just before I added in the filling to how sticky the paper has come. So I literally rolled these rice paper rolls exactly how I roll spring rolls. So if you do add too much filling, then there is a possibility that the rice paper will rip and you're going to have to simply do it all over again. You also have to make sure that these are tightly wrapped and don't have any like bubbles or holes, because then they will have an effect when you do deep fry them. From the start, if you have added too much water to the rice paper, you'll notice, because it will simply rip before you can even start to roll them or even fill them. And after rolling all of them up, this is how they end up looking. I did try to make them as even as possible, but some were kind of filled more than the others. And also the way how you roll them does actually have a big impact on how they'll turn out after they're deep fried, which I'll show you later on in the video. So I actually didn't deep fry them straight from this moment. I've never deep fried them like this before. I always have to freeze them and then take them out the freezer, defrost them, and then I fry. Simply because the rolls were really sticky, as you can see, and I didn't want to add them to the oil just like this. So I did think freezing them and then deep frying them would have been a better option. This is how they all looked just before adding them into the freezer for overnight. So this is how the rice paper rolls look after a day of them being inside the freezer. And I actually did allow them to defrost for a good half an hour before adding them to some hot oil. I wouldn't recommend adding them in the microwave to defrost because they will come out really soggy. After they have slightly defrost, make sure to just get a tea towel and dry them so there's no water on them. And then in a pan, I added in some sunflower oil and deep fried the rolls. I deep fried them for a good 4 to 5 minutes because I really wanted like a nice colour on them. Make sure your heat is on a medium to high flame because you don't want them to just burn really quickly. And once the rice paper rolls were done, I simply gave them a very deep inspection. And I had noticed that one of the rolls weren't properly wrapped, and you can see on this one that it actually exploded kind of like in the oil, and that's probably why the oil was kind of black and it was kind of had black marks around it. Whereas this roll is intact and it looks good, but just this one literally was overfilled at the end and there was a problem that came out of it, so you gotta make sure that you do roll them correctly. And this is how to basically make chicken and sweet corn rice paper rolls. If you are looking to try something different, then definitely give these a try. And last but not least, I hope you enjoyed this video. Make sure to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in my next one.